What's going on, guys? Jim Galvin back here again for another video. NFG is less than 10 days away. I'm definitely feeling as though I'm looking forward to a deload next week. I've just completed my penultimate session, something that I call all of everything. So 90% of the time, guys, my split is a lower body strength, power and hypertrophy session, upper body strength, power and hypertrophy, and then metcon and capacity work. Either a day off or we just roll through that process again. So it's kind of 3 days on, 1 day off, or 6 days on, 1 day off, depending on how I'm feeling any particular given week. But today I did a full body, all systems workout that includes 3 main features, and it is this. Number 1, a little bit of lower body and upper body strength work. Again, anywhere between 2 and 6 reps, as you'd expect by the fact I said strength. Number 2 is kind of like a functional bodybuilding, functional hypertrophy, metabolic bodybuilding giant set with a couple of lower body bits, a couple of upper body bits, and maybe some core work thrown in there as well. Again, the fact that it's functional and the fact that it's a little bit metabolic means you're working at bodybuilding kind of hypertrophy rep ranges. For me, that's kind of anywhere between 6 and 12, but we try to keep the rest to a minimum, so you only partially recover from a particular set before you move on to the next one. And the third part of this crazy Goliath session is some conditioning work. So for me, the reason why I structure things like this today is a session that's approached in this way has a couple of benefits. Although it's not the way that I would usually program the development of those components. So again, the strength stuff, the kind of the muscle mass stuff from the hypertrophy and the conditioning bits, I do normally like to split those things up. It's kind of doing them all together in one session. It's a pretty decent run through and kind of representation of what it would be like in a functional fitness competition where you are expected to demonstrate all of these components together in a shorter period of time, not on different days. It gets the body a little bit more used to having to switch between these modalities and between these intensities nice and quickly. And to be completely honest, it's actually really fun to program and really fun to execute, and you just feel as though you're doing everything. Again, full body, all systems on one day in one specific session. So it's quite a good thing to program, quite a good thing to attack. So without further ado, for me, my penultimate session, full body, all systems, it looked a little something like this. So the upper and lower strength stuff, guys, that I mentioned. The lower body bit, we did some trap bar deadlift. I tried to do this beltless. I feel as though embracing my core. Actually, to be fair, I feel better beltless in deadlifts at the moment than I do in squats. Squats seem to put a little bit more pressure on my lumbar spine, but it might just be the angle at the hips perhaps. But working up to kind of moderate weight, so not super duper duper heavy. I squatted heavier earlier in the week, so what I wanted to do was just keep this about 170, do that for 5, but try to keep it nice and snappy. So I'm not garthing it off the ground, but as soon as it is off the floor and I feel it moving, I'm being nice and snappy from there and trying to make sure that I'm not telling my body, I'm not allowing my body to get used to the message of contracting your glutes slowly and bringing the hips to the extension slowly. So I'm not jumping with it, it's not a trap bar deadlift jump, but it is executed with speed and intensity at the top range, top part of the movement. And this was always being partnered with some strict overhead press. I worked my way up to working sets of 5 again, same as the trap bar, and I was doing 75 kilos for 5. This felt fairly comfortable, actually. I think we did this 3 or 4 times through, myself and Harry, and the last 2 sets maybe, the very last, the 5th rep of those last 2 sets, felt a little bit slower, but it's still moving up fairly steadily. So even though the movement, the speed of the concentric contraction, it did slow down, this is kind of what you're looking for. If the 5th rep of set number 4 is exactly the same speed and comfort level as the first rep of the first set, then you're probably working too light. So the fact that the last 20% of the set, so in this, it's fairly easy to work out in regards to this because it's just the very last rep of the set. The fact that that's a little bit slower is probably a good thing because it means you are actually working at a level that will give you some kind of progressive overload. And moving on to the second part, guys, which is that kind of giant set, that full body, functional hypertrophy, metabolic bodybuilding workout. I did some squats, super duper duper light. I didn't want to wear my lifting shoes. I didn't want to wear my knee sleeves. And I just wanted to feel nice and comfortable, as though in addition to a little bit of lactic burn in the legs, the main bottleneck for an increase in speed for this was actually heart and lungs. So again, I'm as well as working on kind of or trying to elicit, I should say, a little bit of a bodybuilding adaptation, for me, again, because I'm, at this point, I was kind of 9 days out from a functional fitness competition, the metabolic effect, I want to kind of push my heart and lungs and make it sure it's a little bit gassy. So I just kept the squats at 70 kilos. I did 10. I then did 10 lat raises, and then I did 10 bent over dumbbell row, some single arm stuff. And we did 5 rounds of this, but with pretty much no break at all. So as soon as you're done with a row, literally put them down, walk back into the squat rack and go again. So this is kind of, I wouldn't say 5 rounds for time, the same way that a WOD would be done, because it wasn't done recklessly and it wasn't done with too much speed that you're losing form. So you're allowing yourself to partially recover, but the individual body parts that you're working, when I do the squats, if I then move on to lat raise and row, by the time I then go back to squats, which is the first exercise of the 3, my legs should be fairly well recovered. So again, that's why, if you imagine that, that's why heart and lungs are going to be working probably more than the localized muscle group. But that being said, each muscle group should only really have anywhere between kind of 45 and 60 seconds to recover before you're back on that station. So overall, you do elicit kind of a growth hormone dump, you do elicit some bodybuilding adaptations, but you do get a nice little bit of kind of metabolic effect with it as well. So I think it's just a great all-round giant set to do. And the third and final piece here, I started my conditioning work on this session with just some steady state mono stuff. So I did a K on the rower. I'll be completely honest, I do kind of feel in the bin right now, but considering this is the second to last session that I'm doing, that's kind of how I should be feeling, I feel. And before I've competed before, my last week, you are kind of lifting heavy, but things can tend to feel a little bit heavy. Things can tend to feel a little bit slow, but that's kind of okay because you know that you've got a hell of a lot of training volume in your system, which is why the very, very, very last session, you should kind of feel as though you're in the bin a little bit and you should feel as though you need a deload. And that's how I felt before. And when I've done training cycles where I felt like that at the end and then deloaded and then competed, the competition normally goes quite well. So hopefully the fact that I was knackered on this steady state work bodes well. But obviously I did it on the rower. That can then be flicked out for anything else. That can be exchanged with a ski erg, as you can kind of see here, or on the bike, and it doesn't necessarily have to be steady state either. The whole point is it's full body, all systems, and the third part of the session, which is the conditioning component. For me, I just chose a little bit of steady state, but you can do some speed work and some interval work as well. For more info and kind of guidance and context on how to structure some interval training and structure those work to rest ratios, check out one of my last videos on exactly that, and that'll give you a bit of guidance on how to develop a more kind of all-round functional fitness athlete, CrossFit athlete, military kind of capacity, ability, by the fact that you're able to kind of flip between intensity and rest quite quickly and chip away at your body's need to rest. So again, for me, I chose a steady state one on this just because it's something that I fancy doing on the day, but that can be exchanged for some intervals if you need it. And there you go, guys. For me, this was my penultimate session. It was my second to last training session before I go into a decent, like a proper comprehensive 8-9 day deload cycle. But one of the reasons why I think this is so good and should be done at least fairly often, kind of once a month, to do a full body all systems workout, is it is a really, really, really good run through, like a mock trial of how your body will need to function on a functional fitness competition on that day, where you will need to flip between different modalities. You will need to switch. The physiological state that you're in is going to need to switch between different intensities fairly quickly. And again, it's quite good fun to just know that you worked a bit of upper, a bit of lower, a bit of core. You worked on some strength stuff, some functional bodybuilding rep ranges, and worked on some conditioning stuff as well. It is literally the most comprehensive, kind of all-encompassing session you can do. It's not the way that I would train generally. I wouldn't do every session like this. I like to split the components up and even split body parts up now and again. That's why I split between upper and lower. But I do think this is a really, really valuable way of having that kind of that run through, and it's a really, really good valuable method of just kind of mixing up your training if you do have a slightly more concrete split. Again, I have a concrete split between upper, lower, and conditioning work. So for me, sometimes it's nice to just park that and do something a little bit different, keep the body on its toes. And again, we're all doing this because we want it to be fun, and we're all doing this as well as the pursuit of improved performance. We hopefully are aware, and hopefully we kind of maintain the attitude that this stuff should be flipping fun at the same time. So doing something a little bit different definitely aids with that. Really hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Do give it a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it and you got some value from this. If you have not yet done so, please do subscribe. CrossFitters or functional fitness athletes, people prepping for or serving in the military or just general kind of fitness enthusiasts and recreational bodybuilders. We've got a lot of content on its way specifically for those kind of target groups. And the best thing that you can do if you are getting value from this, something I'd be very grateful for, is please do share this video with someone just like you that can get just as much value from it. Have an amazing day, guys. Looking forward to seeing you for the next one. Peace out for now.